Iron Man 3 is one of the most clever, creative, and original superhero slash comic book films I've ever seen, and yet everybody hates it. Gee, sounds fucking familiar, doesn't it? I wonder what film could possibly relate to this one. It's such a mystery, I don't even know. What the fuck has this world come to? Yes, I'm finally going to be reviewing Iron Man 3. And I know I'm going to get a lot of comments saying, didn't you already do that? Not really, that was just my first impressions video that I did when the film had first come out, and that's all it was, just my first impressions of the movie. That's when I first saw the movie, and those were just my thoughts as I was making the video. This is going to be my official thoughts on the movie, and this is just going to be sort of an update as, you know, to what my thoughts are on the actual movie. And that's really the main reason why I do these first impressions videos and then review videos for when the movie comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. As the title does suggest, I will be reviewing the Blu-ray and the special features and, you know, all that stuff. But I did this as sort of a nice little experiment as to showing you guys how much my opinions on the film have changed, either from good to bad, or from bad to good, or from good to good, bad to bad, vice versa, and all that good stuff. I've also done these, you know, first impressions videos and review videos because it gives me an opportunity to, you know, further discuss my opinions on the film and talk about some stuff that I may have left out in my first impressions video. So, you know, it helps me out in that. It gives me more time to talk about a movie that I probably did not have enough time to talk about in my first impressions video. So it's sort of a part 2 review, but I don't want to consider it a part 2 review because it's not really, it's just first impressions and then my official thoughts and therefore my official review for this film. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about Iron Man 3. As I mentioned before, I think this is one of the most original, one of the more clever, and one of the most creative comic book movies slash superhero movies I've ever seen. And I gave the film an 8 out of 10 rating way back when I saw it in May, and way back when I did my first impressions video. But now, seeing as how I've watched it multiple times on DVD and Blu-ray, I do have the Blu-ray right here for you guys as proof of that, I have upgraded that rating from an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 because there was just so many things that I, you know, noticed in the film that I did not notice when I first saw it that I really, really liked. And some of the stuff that I did not enjoy from when I first saw it, I've actually come to appreciate just a little bit more. And I think that's something that we should probably discuss first of all. Seeing as how one of the things I ended up not liking when I first saw it, I actually do end up liking now, is in fact probably the biggest, fattest, most oddly colored elephant in the room, which is of course the Mandarin. And this is really the metaphorical line in the sand where you either, at this point in the film, pick if you like this movie or pick if you hate this movie. And when I first saw this movie, I hated the decision that they went with the Mandarin. I despised this decision with an absolute bloodthirsty passion. I hated this decision. And every other word that, and any other synonym to hated, I just did with this decision of the Mandarin. I mean, I know the Mandarin was a really ridiculous, really out there character in the comic, and trust me, I'll explain why he was a really ridiculous and out there character in the comic books, but I didn't want to see that Mandarin. I wanted to see a serious Mandarin, a more not literal, but more metaphorical interpretation of the Mandarin. I wanted to see a realistic, a grittier version, more, you know, down-to-earth version of the Mandarin. Like, in the comics, the Mandarin was this Mandarin Chinese man who found a crashed alien spaceship. And in crashed alien spaceship, he found 10 magical rings that could shoot lasers. And he then had the power to summon an ancient alien dragon named Fang Fang Foom. And now that I described that villain, it sounds more like a Flash Gordon villain than an actual Iron Man villain. I mean, this is Iron Man's main antagonist. This is Iron Man's Joker. This is Iron Man's Green Goblin. Why would you choose this villain? Again, like I said, he sounds more like Emperor fucking Ming from Flash Gordon than an Iron Man villain of any sorts. I mean, yeah, I know it's a comic book and everything, but you kind of have to have your villains make sense for your comic book character and everything. Like, the Joker is the opposite of Batman. Perfect villain right there. Have an opposite of Iron Man. Wooden Man. There you go. That's a better villain than the Mandarin for Iron Man. But I wanted to see but, you know, going off track a little bit and getting back on track, I wanted to see I didn't want that Mandarin. I wasn't upset because I didn't get that Mandarin. I didn't want to see that fucking Mandarin, okay? That was a dumb Mandarin. That was a dumb villain. I wanted to see a grittier, like a realistic, actual, threat. Like an actual, like not silly, stupid, goofy Mandarin. I wanted to see a really realistic, really, threatening Mandarin. And, a Mandarin that was more like, sort of like Osama bin Laden or Muammar Gaddafi, a Mandarin like that who was like a terrorist. And from what the trailers showed us, we looked like we were getting that. We looked like we were getting a really badass, really, serious and real-world Mandarin, like a really big threat. And I was especially happy because of this, because they were supposed to use Mandarin in the first Iron Man movie. They set him up, they even had Easter eggs of him in the first Iron Man movie, but decided not to use him. So now we were getting him in the third Iron Man movie. A third movie, 3 movies we had to wait to get the Mandarin in the flesh. And what did it turn out to be? Just a big fat fucking joke, and that's all that it was. Just a giant joke, and it wasn't the Mandarin, it was just Gandhi playing Ringo Starr, pretty much. Just Gandhi as Ringo Starr. Does that sound anything like the Mandarin to you? Does that sound anything like what you expected to see from the Mandarin? No, not at all. So, of course, I was pissed off, and of course, everybody else that was a fan of the Iron Man comics was also pissed off. And I don't even think the Iron Man comic fans were really pissed off about this. I think even general moviegoers were pissed off about this. I mean, think about it this way. Your general moviegoer who's watching the trailers, getting really excited for the next Iron Man movie, you're seeing this villain do some really badass stuff, and you're getting really pumped to see that villain, and when you see the movie, he ends up just to be an absolute joke and not at all taken at all seriously. Yeah, it pissed me off too, even if I wasn't a comic book fan. So, yeah, this did piss me off when I first saw it, but what is the reason why I changed my mind? Well, it really actually works in the context of the film's plot. The whole film's plot has to do with, it's kind of complicated to explain, but they do explain it in the movie, but it has to deal with sort of the identity of evil and the identity of, terrorism. And, it has to deal with, there has to be a face of evil. Like, there has to be, there's every, Osama bin Laden or, like they mentioned in the movie Gaddafi. And there's every, there's got to be a face for the Mandarin. There's got to be a face for, all these, bombings, as they say in the film. And there's got to be, a person. There's got to be a person to blame for all this stuff. And the Mandarin, the way that they use it in the film, was really very, very nicely done. Like, he wasn't from the comics, but again, I didn't want to see that Mandarin from the comics. I wanted to see a more realistic version of the Mandarin. And in a way, I did kind of get that. I didn't want the Mandarin from the comic books, as I mentioned before, and I didn't really get the Mandarin from the comic books. I didn't get that at all. I got, in fact, something a little bit more different, and that is, in fact, what I wanted. So, technically speaking, I did get the Mandarin that I wanted, but at the same time, I didn't get the Mandarin that I wanted. So, that's kind of cool, I guess. But he fits into the film's plot very nicely. The movie has to do, again, like I said, with giving, evil a face and giving, terrorism a face and just giving, all this stuff an identity and a person that you blame for all this. Like, the Mandarin in this isn't really doing any of this. It's really someone higher up pulling all the strings, and he's really just the patsy, the person that, put all this on. And I thought that was great, and in the film's context, it works perfectly. And again, that's a reason why I think this is one of the much smarter comic book movies and one of the more clever comic book movies. I thought that was great. I thought it was a great way to, you know, do this Mandarin character. And that's just something I thought of as, you know, I thought about this film a little bit more and watched it on multiple viewings. Also, speaking of about the Mandarin, a lot of people will argue that the Mandarin in the comics was already a stupid, really ridiculous, and out there comic book villain. And really here, he was just that. He was a really stupid, ridiculous, and out there comic book villain. So really, we did kind of get the Mandarin, so it wasn't really all that big of a deal. And the people that say that, I do kind of have to agree. There is multiple ways to view the Mandarin in this film. He was stupid in the comics. He was stupid here. Faithful and true adaptation, fine. People wanted a different Mandarin from the comics. They got a different Mandarin from the comics. Alright, fine, good enough. There's multiple ways to view this, or you can view it in the way that the movie shows it, as the Mandarin works in the context of the movie. So there's multiple ways to view the Mandarin, but if you are one of those people that wanted to see a very true, 100% completely fine, you know, true Mandarin, this, you know, again, isn't your movie, and if you are disappointed by that, I apologize. But there is some happy news to this. Marvel has announced that one of their upcoming one-shots, which are, you know, little short films that they do in between the big Marvel movies, is in fact going to focus on the Mandarin. Not the fake one from Iron Man 3, although he will be essential to the plot, but the real, in fact, actual Mandarin with the 10 magical rings and everything. And he's going to seek vengeance on the fake Mandarin in this Iron Man 3 film because he tarnished the name of the Mandarin. Oh, hell yeah, that sounds like so much fun. I mean, I'm already saving up my money to buy that Blu-ray, and odds are you probably are too. So, that sounds badass, and it does make up for Iron Man 3 a little bit. So, the fans that were disappointed with the way Mandarin was done in this film, you are being compensated, so that's awesome. I mean, everything happens for a reason, so, you know, that's really, really awesome, and trust me, I cannot wait to see that. So, just to clear off everything, I don't, in fact, hate the choice that they did with the Mandarin in this. I actually think it's a very, very, very clever, and very, very, you know, new, and like I said, you know, clever and smart for this comic book movie. So, you know, I gotta give them props. That was, you know, pretty cool. And it shows that they had a lot of balls, and they had a lot of guts to do that. I mean, you know, going into this, they pretty much, with that idea, they pretty much knew that they were going to piss off a lot of big comic book fans, but it made the movie seem very, very smart, very, very clever, and I really gotta admire that. I mean, they did have a lot of guts, so I gotta admire that. And then we get to another big elephant in the room with this film. This movie has a lot of elephants in it. It even mentions, like, elephants with an elephant graveyard in it. I don't think that's a coincidence. But we get to another big elephant in the room with this film, which has to do with one of the characters in the film named Harley, who is a little kid in the film, played by Ty Simpkins, I believe. That is the full name. Not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, and if I'm not, I apologize. Correct me in the comments below, however you pronounce it. But this is something that I also really, really like in the film. I did like this idea they went with this character when I first had seen it, but I still do really love it, and I'm going to explain why I really love it here, my review. The reason why I love the inclusion of this kid in this, you know, movie is not only because he's, you know, Ty Simpkins does a really good job in this. I believe this is his first acting debut, at least in a big motion picture, big blockbuster like this, so, you know, kudos to him. Want to see him in, you know, more future projects. The reason why I really love the kid in this movie is because usually in action and sci-fi movies, the kid character is really fucking annoying. I mean, he's just really, really fucking annoying. And he is annoying in this, but that is kind of the point. I mean, he is annoying in this movie, but Tony Stark finds him annoying in this movie. Like, Tony Stark, you know, when he's talking with the kid, he's annoyed by pretty much everything that the kid is saying, so that's kind of the point. I mean, the reason why we are annoyed by the kid in a lot of action and sci-fi films is because he says annoying things, but none of the characters in the movie react to said annoying things. They're just like, okay, yeah, sure. But in this movie, the reaction does, you know, make sense. It's a reaction towards something that's annoying. So that's kind of the point. The character's annoying because, well, that's kind of the point. He's supposed to be annoying. But that's not only the reason why I like this kid a lot. The reason why I like the inclusion of this kid in this movie is because every last cliche that is done with the kid in a lot of action sci-fi films is totally turned on its ear in this film and is just totally made fun of and celebrated here. Like, in a lot of, action sci-fi films, a kid, has lost at least one parent, even though, either because they're dead or they just left simply, or they're being picked on, they have a bully or whatever. All those cliches are in this movie, but they are handled in no way that you would expect at all. The kid says, well, my dad left me and my mom 6 years ago, and Tony Stark just says, yeah, well, dad's leaved, and no need to be a pussy about it. Word for word, exactly. I mean, you could literally hear my jaw dropping to the floor when I first saw that scene in theaters. It was ridiculous. I wasn't expecting that at all. I mean, what I was expecting was when those words left that kid's mouth, this was my honest reaction. I was just sitting there thinking, oh God, here we go. We got the kid who's, has a bad life, but by the end of the movie he's going to be perfectly fine, and they're just going to play up all the big cliches and yada yada yada. I know this already. But they don't at all focus on this kid's problems whatsoever. They just have so much fun with it, and they give it the reaction that would fit Tony Stark's character. Tony Stark doesn't at all feel sympathetic towards this kid or sad for this kid, because that would feel out of character. That's what you would expect. You would expect this character that is an asshole to be sympathetic towards this kid, but that's not at all what happens. He acts the way that he acts. He doesn't act any way out of character. And the reaction towards this kid is a Tony Stark reaction. That's what I like to call it. It's what you would... It's not... You would expect, like, the worst. You would expect that, Tony Stark would feel sorry for this kid and he would help him out and whatever. And he does help him out by the end of the movie, but he gives him a hard time about it. And he's an asshole to the kid. He's really just using him as a means to an end. But, that's what you would expect from Tony Stark. It's very despicable and kind of, mean-spirited, as a lot of people would say. But that's Tony fucking Stark. That's Tony Stark in a nutshell. That's him. That's Tony Stark. That's his character. That's Anthony Stark. That's Tony Stark right there. Okay, he's an asshole, even to little kids. That's why we all love him. So I loved that they decided, instead of just, focusing on the schmaltzy stuff and making it really cheesy and really just, dumb, and they were pulling into the driveway and then they just took a complete left turn and they just went in a completely different direction with it. And I was so happy with that. And you could tell by this movie that this was something that, like, Disney wanted. That Disney wanted this kid to be in the movie to appeal to the target demographic of kids. And they were just like, well, you know what, we're gonna put the kid in the movie, but you gotta remember, he's interacting with Tony Stark. Tony Stark's not gonna give two shits what this kid says, so we're gonna go with the way that we want. We're gonna take your orders, but we're gonna go with the way that we want. So, yeah, up yours, Mickey. I thought that was just great. That was just an awesome, completely unexpected direction that they were going with this kid. And that's the way I think that a lot of cliches should be done. They should be, turned on their ear, and they should be done differently, and they should be celebrated instead of just done all the freaking time, and they should be changed from cliches to, they should be joked about instead of just used so often. It's really surprising that so many films these days use so many of the same cliches, when really they should do something different with them, do something creative with them, like this movie did. Again, this movie I thought was creative, one of the creative comic book movies and superhero movies. And going back to, Tony Stark and Tony Stark as a character, a lot of people find that the humor in this movie really does diffuse the tension and suspense of this movie, especially with Tony Stark. But that's, again, like I mentioned with him reacting to Harley in the film, that's just Tony Stark. Tony Stark doesn't take anything seriously whatsoever. This was the guy that fell from a wormhole, passed out in space and fell through a wormhole, and then after he woke up, joked about eating shawarma with all his Avengers buddies. He doesn't take jack shit seriously, so him joking about a lot of big, suspenseful stuff in this movie, I didn't at all find out of, character, or I didn't find that it diffused attention or suspense, because that's just Tony Stark itself. That's Tony Stark, in general. That's the character of Tony Stark. If another character did this, a character that takes it seriously, that's a different issue. But most of the jokes are, Tony Stark centered and are said by Tony Stark. And that's the thing about this movie that I really love. I really love the humor in this movie. Nowhere in the movie did I feel any of the humor went, I found that none of the jokes were too much or too little. They were just perfect. They were snappy, they were witty, and they were just great. And I just love the jokes in this movie. And that gets me really excited for the future Marvel films and to see how the jokes, evolve from here. The jokes in this movie were just so funny. And again, they weren't too much, they weren't too little, they were just perfect. Same goes with the action scenes. They weren't too long, they weren't too short, they were just perfect. And this in a habit that this movie broke from the last two Iron Man movies was the anticlimactic ending final battle scenes. This finally had a giant big climax that didn't at all feel anticlimactic or whatever at, the seaport, and it was just a great big action scene. And for some reason, when I was watching this movie, I immediately flashed back to, like, the ending and big fight of Spider-Man 3. Not because it was similar, but because like, inner child in me just felt very happy for, like, the children that were watching this movie. Like, this is sort of their Spider-Man 3. Like, what Spider-Man 3 was to me, it is now to the little kids, here. Because it's this big, giant, bombastic action scene that is just really badass and awesome. I don't know, something that I just wanted to throw in there quick. And something that I didn't like about the movie, which is just a minor nitpick, not really all that big of a deal, just, minor nitpick and whatever, was the Iron Patriot armor used in the movie. It had no reason to be used in the movie whatsoever. It was really just there just as fan appeal, and it was really just to get there just to get fans in the seats. Had no reason to be in there. It's really, again, just there just as fan appeal and, fan service. It's completely different from the comics. In the comics, the Iron Patriot armor was an armor worn by Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin from Spider-Man comics and, whatnot. Here, it's just a repainted armor because, that armor is now property of the U.S., the U.S. Army and everything, which I guess kind of makes sense. But, it's really no different than the War Machine armor. Like, there would be really no difference. It had no reason to be painted, red, white, and blue and everything, or red, silver, and blue. I don't know. Because silver's new white. Who knows? It was no difference if you had him in the War Machine armor, and I really wanted to see the War Machine armor back, especially because all the marketing, like toys and TV spots and whatever, showed that the War Machine armor was going to be in this movie, and it didn't end up being in the movie. That was kind of disappointing, but there was no reason to have the Iron Patriot armor in this at all. I just didn't like it at all. I thought that was really just kind of wasted potential, especially if they wanted to use it for, like a future Marvel film or whatever. And that was just kind of, useless and pointless. It was just dumb. I didn't like it. And then also, this is a big plot hole. This is not only my problem with this film, but this is also my problem with Thor: The Dark World, and it's probably going to be my problem with Captain America: Winter Soldier, is that in this movie, the president is kidnapped. The president is kidnapped and is being held, not ransom, but is going to be literally executed live on television, and yet S.H.I.E.L.D., or even the Avengers are not at all called in to help out Tony with this. It's like, no, we're not going to call S.H.I.E.L.D., we're not going to call, the Avengers. You, Iron Man, go figure this out. Like, if the president was kidnapped in the Marvel Universe, just like that, wouldn't the first person on that be S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury? Wouldn't that be the first person? It doesn't make any sense at all. And that's my big problem with some of these future Marvel movies, is that if you're going to have these big, giant, climactic, problems happen with, each solo Marvel movie, like with Thor: The Dark World or Captain America: Winter Soldier, give us a reason why the Avengers aren't coming in and helping out that solo character. Like in this movie, and there's no reason at all why it's explained. There's no explanation why Nick Fury or why S.H.I.E.L.D. is not brought into the situation to come clean it up or whatever, to come and save the president or the Avengers. Not a single explanation whatsoever. Even if it was a shitty explanation like, oh, they're, off, somewhere doing something else, would be fine enough, but they don't even try to explain it. It's just, oh, Iron Man go save the president. Like, S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't even called into that. The Avengers isn't even called to that. Captain America isn't even brought into that. The President of the United States of America is captured, is going to be killed. Captain America. is not even brought in to go solve that one. Tony Stark is dead. You worked with Tony Stark and fighting off of aliens and you fought with him. He kept the world from coming to a fucking stop and ending. And when you hear that he dies, nobody, not even the Hulk. Come on, that's dumb. I hated the after credit scene. It didn't set up any future Marvel movie or Iron Man film. It was just sort of, oh, hey, it's kind of cute, oh, hey, here's a little, cute scene or whatever. Hated the after credit scene. It was, cute or whatever, but it wasn't worth, like, waiting after, like 10 minutes of, credits and whatever. It was just annoying and boring. And I think that's about it, yeah. Also, the movie had no reason to be placed around Christmas time. I mean, I don't mind it being placed around Christmas time. I love comic book characters, superhero characters that have to deal with, the holiday season and whatever. I don't know, I just have I'm a sucker for stuff like that. It's guilty pleasure of mine. But this movie had no reason to be placed around Christmas time. It could have been placed around, like, Thanksgiving and Groundhog's Day, and it would have had the exact same effect. Had no reason to be placed around Christmas, but it has now since then become, the highest grossing film to take place around Christmas time, so I just had to include this in my Christmas film reviews for this year. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Iron Man 3. I gave it now a 9 out of 10. I forgive it for some stuff I forgive it for some stuff, but I also do have some, other minor problems, whatever. Excuse me, man. Hiccups, sorry about that. I do forgive it for, some minor stuff, but I also have some my, own problems still with it. I still think it's a great film. It was a total, fix up from Iron Man 2. As you all know, I hated Iron Man 2. I thought everything in this movie is what Iron Man 2 should have been. It took, it actually focused on Tony Stark. It had a clever plot. It actually was an Iron Man film and not an advertisement for the Avengers. And stuff that they did mention from the Avengers was actually kind of funny and had a point to be there. I thought Iron Man 3, still to this day, I think it's a great, clever comic book film. I think it's a great Iron Man movie. And it really, when you think about it, had a lot to do. This was the first film that they did after the Avengers, so it both had to be a sequel to the Iron Man films and the Avengers, and that's kind of what Thor: The Dark World has to be, and what Captain America has to be. Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't have to be shit, because it's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I can't wait for that movie. So, yeah, a lot of these Phase 2 Marvel movies really do have a lot of, stuff to take in and a lot of stuff to, do successfully. They have to be a sequel both to their other solo movies as well as the Avengers. So, so far I think they're pulling that off very, very nicely. This movie definitely did that, and it was a great way to start off these Phase 2 Marvel films, and I can't wait to see, more. I love this movie. I think it's a great film. It's one of my personal favorite comic book movies of all time. Just a great film. Robert Downey Jr. was great as Iron Man as usual. I'm so glad he renewed his contract through Avengers 3. Hopefully he can do more than just 3 Avengers movies, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, they're up to it. I love this movie. You probably do too. If you do not, then, whatever, entitled to your own opinions. If you did not like this movie, please tell me why in the comments below. I would really like to know. If not, or if you don't want to do your own comment, do your own video, and I'll probably watch it. And if it's good enough, I'll subscribe to you. That's all I have to say about Iron Man 3. Oh, shit. Forgot about the Blu-ray special features. I gotta talk about that. The sound and picture quality for the movie, overall, is still great, as usual. I've yet to find a Blu-ray DVD that has bad sound and picture quality. I don't think that exists. If it does, then I really would like to see that. But some of the bonus features in the film... some of the bonus features include a Marvel one-shot titled Agent Carter. And if you don't remember from the Captain America movie, Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, was Captain America's girlfriend. And she's shown here just doing nothing but a bunch of badass stuff. I really wish they would have explained what that little blue serum was that she was getting. That she was stealing from the agents or whatever. I really would have liked to know that. But it just shows that she's an absolute badass. Like, Peggy Carter was just an absolute badass, one of the best female heroines ever. Just total badass in this movie. I don't want to give away anything that happens in this movie, but it's mostly action-packed. It's a very short film. It's very, very cool. You can probably find it online, actually. I doubt it, but, you know, if you look hard enough, you'll probably find it. But it's a great, you know, one-shot, and I really, really love it. Then we have Marvel's Iron Man 3 Jarvis, which is a second screen experience. I haven't checked out that one yet, but it's kind of like, you know, Jarvis taking you through a bunch of stuff about the movie. Haven't checked it out fully, but, you know, it's worth checking out. And then we have Deconstructing the Scene, which is Attack on Air Force One, which is just a behind-the-scenes look at the whole big, giant action scene on, again, like it says, the Air Force One, which is really cool and nice to have, you know, bonus features. Really, the special features on this Blu-ray and DVD are, you know, the average, you know, run-of-the-mill, you know, that's pretty cool. Special features, like you have audio commentaries and behind-the-scenes stuff. It's just, you know, the usual behind-the-scenes look at stuff. So, you know, I really dig that, and I find that, you know, perfectly acceptable and fine. And then we also have, it's kind of outdated by this point, seeing as how the movie's already out and everything, but it's kind of nice to have, especially for when this, you know, Blu-ray came out, which is an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Marvel's Thor: The Dark World. Again, the movie's been out for, you know, a while already, so it's kind of pointless, you know, to have this little behind-the-scenes look, but it was good for the time. And then we also have Marvel's Iron Man 3 Unmasked, which is, again, just some sort of more, you know, behind-the-scenes look at the film from when it was first announced to, you know, when it was released. It's very short, though. Like, this is like a documentary of the movie, and at first I thought it was going to be like a really long look at the process of the film, but it was really, really short. I think it should have been longer. This should have been like a documentary on the making of the movie. I think a lot of the movies should have that, but this, you know, didn't. It was very, very short, but, you know, it's nice enough to have it. Then we also have, you know, the gag reel, deleted scenes, all that good stuff, and extended scenes, and, you know, I really, those were also funny to see. And also one of the deleted scenes in this proves that, and I just want to tell you guys that the Harley scenes and, you know, with him, you know, having a kid in an action sci-fi movie, it could have been far, far worse. And these deleted scenes definitely do prove that because, like I mentioned, he does have a bully in this movie, and they actually focus on the bully character in this movie, and it shows you that they could have went with these cliches and just did what they are, cliches, but they decided not to do that, and they deleted those scenes from this movie, and those can be seen in the deleted scenes section of this Blu-ray DVD. So I just want to tell you guys that if you hated Harley and you hated that little kid being in Iron Man 3, it could have been far worse. And these deleted scenes, you know, prove that 100%. So that's all I have to say about Iron Man 3. I still really love the movie. I love the Blu-ray. A lot of great special features on that. Definitely worth your money. That's all I have to say about it. And this video is going way too long, so I'm going to end it right here. I'll see you guys soon with another, you know, Christmas-related review. And, you know, all I have to say is, you know, Marvel is just kicking ass on and on again. I mean, their movies are just great. I've yet to see a bad Marvel, you know, cinematic universe film. They're just raking in all the money. They're just doing really, really great. It just, you know, wish that DC could, you know, do the same and just, you know, sort of get their act together. I mean, been hearing just a bunch of stuff about their Batman vs. Superman movie, just sounds ridiculous. So I really hope they can get their, you know, act together and just start making some good movies. And making some great movies. I mean, I love Man of Steel, you know, but I really hope that they can make movies, you know, make some more movies that are just as good, if not better than this one. You know what? DC has faced a lot of shit this year, okay? They went through a lot of shit this year, okay? People have been hating on Man of Steel. You know, Batman Arkham Origins wasn't as good as everyone said it, you know, really hoped it was. Hoped it was going to be. I mean, I didn't expect too much from it, so that's why I wasn't completely disappointed with it. But you know what? I, you know, still enjoyed it. And like I mentioned before, DC Nation just took a dive when Green Lantern and Young Justice were canceled. DC's just been taking just fucking hits on and on again this year. So you know what I'm going to do? These next few videos, my last few videos of the year, I'm going to focus on some DC materials that are both, you know, DC material and Christmas material. I talk enough about Marvel, so you know I'm going to talk about DC, because, you know, I'm a DC fanboy, okay? I just want to say it. I favor DC over Marvel any day of the week. I love Marvel, but DC is just, I love DC, so, you know, there's that. So, the next few videos are going to be DC related. I'm going to end the video right here, so I'll see you guys very soon with my review next time of Batman Noel. So, I'll see you guys then.